We're live? All right. Peace and blessings, dear family. My name is Brother Derek Muhammad, and I would like to welcome you to the 2022 Smarten Up Black Male Summit. We have a beautiful crowd of black men and boys here with us today, and we have a beautiful crowd who will be watching us live via social media. We want to say thank you to the African Diaspora News Channel for allowing us to use its 1.3 million followership in its YouTube channel. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else who's tuning in via Facebook and all other social media platforms. Thank you. Before we start our official program, we would first like to start in prayer. As men of God and women of God and people of God, we understand the power of prayer, and we understand that we cannot do it without the help of Almighty God. Can I get a witness? So if you could, please stand for a short prayer before we start our program. Position of prayer. In the name of Almighty God, the beneficent, the merciful, we beseech your help. We ask for your mercy. We believe in you and we trust in you for all that we need, and we are your helpers in your cause with your apostle. So please grant to us success. Amen. All right, you may be seated. Brothers and sisters, we are here to have a very critical discussion about the plight of the black male in the United States of America. Those of you who are listening via social media, we want to ask you to go into the other room and wake your son up. Go into the other room and wake your grandson up. Get on the telephone and call those that you know who need to hear this message. This is a message of empowerment that is strictly and uniquely and custom-made designed for black men and boys. This February is what they call Black History Month. And as you know, were it not for Black history, there would be no history at all. And so it is an insult to try to fit the history of the entire planet Earth into 28 days. But what we want to focus on this February is not just the study of history, but we want to focus on empowering a new generation of history makers. So to the young people who are listening today, we want to say to you that it is important that you study history. It is important that you meditate on what you study, but what's most important is that you equip yourself to go out and make history. And so if we're not empowering the next generation of history makers, then we're not doing what the time requires. Now, I want to thank Greenhouse International Church, Pastor E.A. Deckard, and Lady Sandra Deckard for allowing us the use of this beautiful facility. It's a really big facility, so we're able to kind of spread out to make certain that we're respectful of COVID restrictions. But we are here today, and we are in a room full of great energy today. A lot of positivity in this room, and we want to make sure that it comes through your speaker or through your cell phone. Your cell phone has a speaker. But make certain that you share this live right now. Make certain that you, before we really get into the meat of things, spread the message that the Black Male Summit is live. And those who might be listening from London, those who might be listening from Africa, those who might be listening from the Caribbean, even though we are focused on the plight of the black male in America, you will hear jewels that can be used worldwide from this beautiful array of presenters that we have. Now, again, my name is Brother Derek Muhammad, and I am one of the founders of the Black Male Summit. And what I want to talk about today before I bring up the first presenter is I want to talk about the condition of black men and boys in this country. A report just came out that verified that suicide is now the second leading cause of deaths among black men. This means that not only are we losing our jobs, not only are many of us losing our families, not only are we losing our possessions, unfortunately, many of us are losing our minds. The pressure that black men are under in this country is sometimes seemingly unbearable. And where we make the mistake, black men, is we try to bear up under the pressure by ourselves instead of leaning on the brotherhood. If you don't have a brotherhood that you can lean on, go out and find one. And when you find a brotherhood, you realize that through that brotherhood, you can share a bond that sort of relieves the pressure. Another study came out, and this is nothing new. It says that the unemployment rate among black men is higher among black men than any other race, gender in America, and it's getting higher and higher. I know what some of you are saying, well, that's because young brothers don't want to work. That is not true. If you read the study, it tells you that some of the hiring practices of these corporations are the reasons that black men can't even get a foot in the door. And so what we must do, it is critical that we do. We must do as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we must find a way to do for self. If not, we will suffer the consequences. So entrepreneurship is the answer to the problem of unemployment in the black community, especially where black men are concerned. So we've got some problems that we got to deal with. But there is no problem that God has laid at our feet that if we don't collectively come together, we can't solve that problem. Am I making sense, y'all? Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Now, what I want to speak on is something that's been on my heart for some time now. You know, every time we turn on the nightly news, we see how the homicide rate is going up in every major city. We see our young brothers, many of them, committing mindless, useless, senseless crimes. And when we try to add it up in our minds as to why did this young brother do that, we just can't calculate it. And it is because there's a term that I want to bring up, and it's the term called crash dummy. Does anybody in this room know what a crash dummy is? So if you go and you watch, an automobile commercial, when they're trying to prove how safe an automobile is, they put a crash dummy in the driver's seat. They accelerate the vehicle, allow it to crash into a wall just to see whether or not it hurts or damages the crash dummy. There's no sympathy for the crash dummy. There's no feeling for the crash dummy. Why? Because you're just a crash dummy. But in the context of our community, in the context of our culture, a crash dummy is someone who is willing to do something that is self-destructive in order to fit in where they do not belong. And so what we're seeing is a lot of young brothers pulling crash dummy moves. Give me an example, Brother Derek. Here's one example. Young brother from my neighborhood decided that he wanted to rob a bank. He robs the bank. He gets away with several $1,000s, but it turns into a police chase. The police caught up with him. This is a true story. He jumped the fence and took off running into an open field. And as the police helicopters were over his head, they were zooming down on him. He had this bag of money that he was trying to get away with, money just flying everywhere. So the thing that he came to get, you're not going to keep that anyway, all right? And what happened is he was armed. He turned around and, according to the police, pointed the weapon at them, and he was killed. He was murdered. Now, his objective was to go and rob the bank. But the bank's money is insured. So whatever you took during that robbery, they got it right back. Who did you really rob? You robbed, young brother, yourself. You robbed your mother of a son. You robbed your child of a father. You robbed your community as a potential great one. And most critically, you rob yourself of the most precious thing that you have, and that is your life. There's another brother by the name of Young Dolph. His name is Adolph Thornton. They call him Young Dolph. Beautiful black brother out of Memphis, Tennessee. Any of you in here ever heard of the young brother Young Dolph? Raise your hand. Powerful black man. He owned millions of dollars in real estate. He was only in his early 30s. Young Dolph was in his hometown of Memphis at his favorite black-owned cookie store, purchasing some snacks for he and his mother. Two young men rolled up on him and with automatic weapons fired into the cookie store, killing the young brother. I'm talking about a multi-millionaire lying dead on the sidewalk. Now, these two young brothers who are innocent until proven guilty, but if they are guilty, they are now going before a judge facing life in prison. Why? Why? Crash dummy moved. And if they are found guilty, they will, in essence, have been crash dummies for the criminal justice system. You understand what I'm saying? When what you're doing adds up to less than who you really are, you are putting yourself in the position to become a crash dummy. And so today we want to take this term, crash dummy, and we want to get what's called a little crash dummy insurance by first pointing out what are some of the things that turn our young brothers into crash dummies. The first thing is the desire for attention. They call it clout chasing. And if you yourself feel like you're somebody that's not getting enough attention, you'll go and hook up with a group of boys who you believe are getting a lot of attention. It doesn't matter how they're getting the attention. They could be robbing, they could be stealing, selling dope, shooting. It doesn't matter. You just want some attention. And we as families of these young men, we have to realize that when we fail to give them the attention that they so naturally desire, they'll go out into the streets and find it, and they will do crash dummy things in order to get it. And it is not until they're on the other side of that crash dummy decision that they realize that I made a big mistake. So first things first, we must never be so thirsty for attention that we will do that which is self-destructive in order to get it. Write that down. Never be thirsty for attention. The second thing that causes you to make crash dummy moves is trying to fit into a circle where you were not born to be. You don't even belong in that circle. You know, you and I may have a pair of shoes. Let's say you got a favorite pair of Air Jordans. And the Air Jordans are a size 8. But you know that your feet have grown to a size 9. Well, that may be your favorite pair of shoes, but if you get up in the morning and put those shoes on, if you walk around long enough, they're going to start hurting. Why? Because you're trying to fit your feet into a pair of shoes that you have outgrown. So it may look fun to run with the so-called gang, but if that gang is not headed in the right direction, you're going to hurt yourself trying to fit in where you do not belong. So there are two things that I've pointed out to you that I want you to focus on to try to keep yourself from making these crash dummy moves. One more, and this is probably the most critical one. The most critical one is that you have to have a vision for yourself. You have to have a vision for your life. You have to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, it's very easy for you to hop in the car and just ride with anybody. And that just might be the vehicle that's headed for that brick wall, and you end up being a crash dummy. So our desire here at the Black Male Summit is to make certain that you rise to your fullest potential. But in order to do that, the decisions that you make have to be constructive and not self-destructive. You have to be willing to educate yourself. You have to be willing to get your knowledge up. So when it comes time for you to make the decision, you can make the right decision instead of being a crash dummy for the criminal justice system. Welcome to the Black Male Summit. Please give yourselves a round of applause for being here and being here on time. Our first presenter, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I knew he was going to leave the room. There he is right there. Our first presenter is a brother who is very near and dear to me. Now, we talking about crash dummies and making crash dummy moves. My brother and I were discussing this the other day, and he said, yeah, Brother Derek, I used to be a crash dummy myself. He's a former gang leader, but he's a former crash dummy as well. Isn't that right, Brother Slim? So he wants to come up here and stand as a testament that there is hope even for crash dummies. Give it up for our brother Arthur Silky Slim Reed, all the way here from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Come on, y'all can do better than that. Give it up for our brother Silky Slim. How you doing today, my brother?
Thank you. That was a crash dummy move for him saying I left the room and I wasn't going nowhere. But today was a rough day for me to get here. For some reason, I just couldn't get things together spiritually. I spent most of the night dissecting some of the entertainment that our young black males are taking in. And I was looking through Instagram, and a young sister, she had made a TikTok. And when I heard the beat of the song, I said, boy, that's pretty catchy. But then I started listening to what the brother was saying. Marlo got shot. He got popped. And I said, wow, this is some very foolish entertainment. So I called my young son and I said, you ever heard this song? And iconically he said, yeah, Daddy, that's Foolio. So I started to research this beef that's going on between Foolio and this other young rapper. And the sad part about it is that all of this that we're listening to, when he talk about who got shot, these brothers really got shot. When he talk about who's dead, they really dead. You listen at No Cap, and he's talking about one brother wanting to go to the graveyard after he got out the pen, and he say they didn't take Fred to the graveyard soon enough, so Fred went to the graveyard to see. All of this is really happening in our community, and we're accepting it. No other race of people do I see try to or is forced to profit off of their own suffering. It's only happening to us. We profit off of our own suffering. Hip-hop is good when you apply it right. When you listen to the struggles in hip-hop, when they're talking about police brutality and they're talking about all of the ills that took place in the community, it's good. But when we start talking about the ops, when I catch the op, I'm going to kill the op. The op is really sitting back at his office, laughing at the fools, laughing at the crash dummies, because the op knows that he's going to get paid off of the crash dummy, dead or alive. See, we have been tricked into a lifestyle of straight up foolishness, a desolate lifestyle. Everything is kill, 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 or is selling our young ladies sexual acts. I'm looking, and I became very troubled, and I stayed up most of the night saying, wow, is there really any hope for the future of the black male? When you cut on the TV, it's all death. You get on the radio, it's all death. And we have allowed ourselves to create a society based on what we're listening to and what we see on Devil Vision. I could come and I could, I go across the nation, I talk to young men, I fight for justice, but I also tell people the truth. Now, if you go and you start Googling me, I had a very crash dummy past myself. Gang leader for 33 years, just like he said. I got a lot of young fools out there that listen to what I said. And I went back, was talking to one of my people one day, and I was telling them how good God had been to me. And he said, man, Slim, man, you really messing me up. He said, you told me we was rocking with the devil. Now you coming back trying to tell me something about God. And it clicked in my mind what an old man once told me. He said, you know what, son? He said, it's more easier to make a fool out of someone than to convince them that they've been made a fool out of. Because once you tell me I've been made a fool out of, that hurts. And I'd much rather continue to be a fool than to face the reality that someone has made a fool out of me. That's where our young people are today. Society has made a fool out of them. We got beef going on in the hood 24/7. So where I'm from, if you go in the south of Baton Rouge, you got the BBGs, bottom boy gorillas, and then you got the TBGs, which the top boys gorillas, and all of this is one community with a number of streets that won't expand past 40 streets. It's so small and everybody beefing. So while we over here claiming BBG, right on the other side of the interstate, you got the TBGs, and we killing each other out. A 5-year-old baby was just killed in the hood. And everybody, we come up, we get upset then. Oh, no, but every life is valuable. And the thing about it is that this is the Bible Belt where we're hanging at. So we got a church on every single corner in my neighborhood. And in between each and every one of those churches, we got murder, mayhem, drug selling. We got hell. So while we go to church for those 2 hours on Sunday and talk about a spiritual hell, we walk outside the doors of the church and there's a physical hell that we got the power to change, but because we don't have it in our hearts to go out there and change that hell still exists. The thing that I see with this young generation, when I look into their eyes, I see something that I don't see in our leadership, in our pastors, in our government. They actually are willing to die for what they believe in. In this old generation, the one that was in the Bible that looked over into the land, and they got some giants over there. These youngsters see the giants and are willing to kill or die by the giant, not realizing that they are the most powerful generation that we have. So until we take up the stand, until we get to where we need to be, we're going to continue to see what we're seeing in the communities. We're going to continue to see, and it's going to get worse because now the record labels are promoting sheer violence. You don't see Capitol Records or Universal Records or Interscope Records trying to give you the knowledge of a K. Reno or an individual that got something positive to say, something to wake up our youth. You see them giving money to a NBA dumb boy, as Jay Prince said. Somebody that don't have any knowledge at all, that's promoting the killing of self and continue to profit off of that. Now the key is, even though one individual is getting paid, the rest of them, the clowns, the ones like my son and those that are following them, they ain't getting a damn thing but killed and sent to the penitentiary. See, being Black History Month, I normally would have my presentation, but I don't think God wanted me to use it today. It's Black history, and I brought a piece of our history. See, at one time, they was putting this around our neck. See, the devil became much wiser, and he said, I don't have to put a rope around their neck and hang them from trees. I could put it in their minds, and they'll hang and destroy themselves. So we on autopilot today. We on autopilot, killing and destroying our own people, while your real enemy sits back and collect a check and look at you and say, I'm destroying them without even having to touch them. I read in one of the books that Satan was called up before God. And, hey, look, I didn't do nothing. I only suggested, and they act. Satan has only suggested this, but we're acting it out ourselves. There is a civil war going on in the Black community. So when we walk out and fight for justice because some white police officer has killed one of our people, we look like fools when we go to the Justice Department. Hey, you see what he did? Well, yes, we do. You're right. The officer was wrong for kneeling on George Floyd's neck. But what about all of the killings that go on in your community? A hypocritical movement of Black Lives Matter. See, in order for Black lives to really matter, it must matter to Black people first. Because if it doesn't matter to us, why in the hell should it matter to anybody else? See, Black Lives Matter, so it has to matter not only at the White House, it has to matter at the smack house, the crack house, the hood. It has to matter at the abortion house. It has to matter to Black people, else nobody should respect the chant of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, but when somebody gets shot in the hood, it's, hey, you know, you can't say nothing. You don't want to be known as a rat. When you have a situation like that, that's the cross that you're forced to carry, but that's one that we refuse to carry. Everybody wants the crown, but we fleeing the cross. This man Jesus that you speak of, he was more powerful in his death than he was when he was here amongst us. See, he carried the cross and took on it. Now, I tell people because we get kind of confused sometimes. Jesus had a mission that he understood. And even though he accepted the mission, it was still not of his will. What did he tell God? He said, Father, why must I drink from such a bitter cup? He didn't try to stop what was about to happen, but if he could have gotten out of it, why must I drink from such a bitter cup? That's what we have to ask ourselves today. Why must we drink from such a bitter cup? We always can say, I can do all things. I hear the mothers and the fathers of these slain individuals. I'm praying. Book tells you that prayer without works is dead. I'm praying. We get real hyped up. I could do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me, but we are doing nothing through Christ Jesus but calling on him. We have the power to change the world that we living in, but our fear of the individuals is what keeps us away from it. Having a young talk with my son just the other day, he said, Daddy, man, don't go in the hood because he's a crash dummy. Some other crash dummy told him, we know your daddy an OG, but we don't respect none of that. So now my son is fearful. Well, Daddy, they might kill you. I said, well, so be it. I said, that'll be something that you have to live with because it's not something that I am afraid of. I know that there's a God that protected me all of these years. I went to penitentiary at a very young age, survived it, came home a man when so many others was getting turned out. But in the pen, there was something that was going on where God was trying to wake me up. I can remember one day I was hiding and didn't want to work, and a free man came around the back of me and caught me hiding behind a tree, and I'm looking, and he right there behind me with the gun in the back of my head. Country white boy said, Reed, catch you not working again, I'll put a hole in you in the state to raise my pay. I looked up from the ground, and when I looked up, he had a white towel over his head with a hat on. And when I looked up, it reminded me of a scene that I had seen before in a movie called Roots. I said, wow, man, I'm in slavery. And I went back and started telling people on the compound, brother, we in slavery. You know what they started saying? Boy, them white folks done drove that Negro crazy thinking we in slavery. If you working for 9 hours a day and you getting paid 27 cents a day, you in slavery. But because of the entertainment and what we have been fed, it makes us feel like we're men when we come out the pen. I was on my way to the White House recently, and I was thanking God about where I came from and where I have been and where I am going. And I was kind of arrogant. I was like, I went to the pen. I didn't get raped. I thank you, Lord. And God kind of like, wait a minute, hold up. Stop the tape a little bit. Let's talk about this. Every time you go to visit and you come back from visiting, there's the guard standing right there. And you got to go stand in front of the guards and take all your clothes off. Guards, raise your feet. Raise your other feet. Grab your buttocks. Open them, cough. So physically you may not have gotten raped, but spiritually you will ever live with that within you. I can't tell you how inhumane or demeaning it is to think about. I got these pants on today because I'm covering my private parts. But when somebody tell you to take that off and look inside of your private parts, that's a hell of a thing to have to live with for the rest of your life. So many of us, we don't see it. But what bothers me the most, share a few stories with you, so I won't bore you. It's this. Last time I counted, I think I have 876 of these. These are obituaries. Wall Street Journal did a piece on me, and it was called More T-Shirts Than Friends. And it was talking about T-shirt like what I have on today, the memorial T-shirts. And when I started to think about it, if I got 400 T-shirts, that's 400 people that I knew that I no longer have the power to reach because they're dead. And when we see this, this is the real pandemic for the black community, the self-destruction of ourselves. This is the pandemic that we have the power to change, but we're all caught up in the same wicked world. I remember how this goes because we have parents that love to come to funerals and cry all over the casket. Those are the ones that hasn't done everything that they could do to get their child out the streets. I tell parents all the time, I say, listen, you got to be the type of parent that I had. My mama didn't care what kind of car I was driving. She didn't care how much money I had. My mama was sold out for Jesus. I go there and say, Mama, look, I know you wanted that coat that you was looking at. Baby, Lord have mercy, Jesus, I rebuke you right now in the name of Jesus. Get the devil out of here. Would run me out her house. She wouldn't take it. But we got some parents that walk down on their children counting their money. And what you doing? Mama, I sold a little dope. I'll give you the money for the rent and buy me a car and chill out. And boy, look, give me that money and don't you be careful out there. Once you say be careful out there, you done open up the door. You don't take the money. Leave it where it is. So doing this, I've seen some very wicked things in my life. I'm going to share 2 or 3 stories with you that I really, and as you can see, this paper is pretty old. It's August 10th, 2007. So these are 2 of my very close friends, very close. Listen how it reads, though. It says, after more than a decade of dodging gunfire and homicide detectives, 2 brothers who police once called a 2-man crime wave died Wednesday in a hell of gunfire. Now, see, it said died Wednesday, so when you hear that, you would think that both of them, died together. Now, let me continue. It says, in the span of 10 hours, Desmond and Michael Phillips were shot to death in separate parts of the city. For the past 13 years, police say the Phillips brothers feared scribblings from the Irish Channel, padded their career criminal resume with cold-blooded killings, and were the suspect in 14 murders at the time of their death. Now, see, they shot the older brother, and the younger brother was at his mama's house, and they sent him to the store to get some cigarettes, but because whoever had killed the older brother knew retaliation was coming, they went on and killed him too. That's the wicked world that we live in. But look at how wicked my friends were too. They say they was suspects in 14 murders. And that's what we have our kids listening to. And then we look at the rappers. I'm listening to a rapper talk to his child, and his child say, Daddy, why do you wear your pants sagging like that? And the rapper say, well, baby, Daddy wears pants like this because he got a graveyard. And the people on the camera was like, wow, did you hear what Kevin told his son? He wears pants sagging like that because he got a graveyard under his belt. Kevin Gates has never killed anyone other than the poison that he's putting into this generation's mind. See, we got a whole bunch of pretendos, crash dummies, giving this generation poison and garbage that they haven't even done. I'm looking at my best friend's son, who's an up-and-coming rapper. He did 2 years in jail, and he's on an interview this week. And where did you do your time at? Oh, I went to Hunts, Angola. I went to DCI. You did all of that in 2 years? But the interviewers, because they don't care what lies are being told to this generation, they don't even fact check. They just let the interview roll. That's why we have to get these kids by any means necessary. 2 more stories, I'm out of here. Let's see. Oh. Here, I'll share this one. This one is definitely one of the saddest ones because we got 25 murders wrapped up in this one. And when we live in that type of world where you have that many individuals just killing each other for nothing, we have to be smart enough to go after our black males. That's why you'll see me at the Black Male Summit. That's why you'll see me bringing this message to you, because it's very important for us to reach our kids. At the end of the day, I wouldn't talk the way that I talk if I wasn't qualified to talk that kind of talk. Every crash dummy move that you may be headed to, I've already done. I've been to penitentiary, but I learned something. I've came home as an educated man. I work for one of the top law firms in the nation right now. And I am living proof that God can even change and use a crash dummy. Saving grace is what have me before you. I've been shot so many times. And God used me for what I'm standing before you for right now today, to try to put a message out there for all of you youngsters that this life is not worth it. Now, does that change the fact that somebody's going to walk out of here and say, I heard a message that changed my life? I doubt it. Because some of us, we got to go to know. I've been, and that's why I could tell you that it's definitely not worth it. And I hope that you find something that take you away from that deaf lifestyle and help you to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother. Come on, brothers and sisters, we can do better than that. Let's give it up for my brother, Arthur Silky Slim Reed. For those of you who are watching on social media, if you would like to follow this brother on social media, his social media handle is @SilkySlim100, @SilkySlim100. Once again, he came out and told his story and literally poured his heart out to try to save a soul that might be lost. Let's give it up for him again. One more time, brother Silky Slim. Now, as we were discussing this whole crash dummy concept, one of the things that I emphasized is that in order for you to end up not being a crash dummy, you need to already have some direction in your life. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what you want to do. You need to know what you want to be great in. I believe that every black male in America needs to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you have a problem. I'm going to say it again. If you do not have a plan, you already have a problem, because if you don't have a plan for yourself, there's somebody out here that's already got a plan for you, and that plan is to make you into a what? Crash dummy. And so in order for you to know where you're going, you have to first go into your mind, and you have to visualize yourself being greater than anybody you see on television, greater than anyone you may see on the internet. You got to visualize yourself being something that even you thought that you never could be. And then once you set that plan for yourself, you got to focus on that plan so intently. I call it having ruthless focus. You got to have ruthless focus on your plan so that no distractions will take you off of your square. The next brother that I want to bring up is a brother that I admire greatly. I met this brother decades ago. And when I met him, the first time we sat down and shared a meal, he told me he was going to school. So I say, brother, what are you going to school for? He said, I'm going to school to be a pilot. That was the first time I'd ever heard a black man say that he wanted to fly an airplane. And I looked him in his face with my ignorant self, and I said, Negro, please. Negro, please. Because I didn't know any better. I never seen a black man even express the desire to want to fly an airplane. Well, here we are decades later, and not only is this brother flying airplanes, he is a captain in a major or at a major airline and has flown to just about every state in America, probably every state, and across seas. He don't just fly the little bitty planes, he flies the big ones. And when you look at the fact that out of all of the pilots in the United States of America, only 1.2 are black. And even less than that are black male. And we wanted to bring him here today to say a few words, because I'm a firm believer that if you want our brothers to be something different, they have to see something different. And so without further delay, I want to bring before you all my good friend, our good friend, who took time out of his busy flying schedule to come and say a few words to us today, Brother Captain Donald. Let's give it up for Brother Captain Donald. This is the brother who decades ago, he told me he was going to be a pilot. I told him, Negro, please. Look at him now. Yes, sir. Okay. I'll grab it for you. Okay. You got it. All right.
I'm going to sit down. Morning. So I'm going to just tell you about myself, and then I'm going to open up the floor for questions, because usually afterwards, everyone has questions. So my name's Donald. I grew up in New Orleans. I moved to Houston when I was 12. So the whole single parent thing, I could run the whole story, just me and my mom, but you know what it is. After that, I was a solid C-D student, mostly D's. Not because I wasn't smart, I was bored. I wasn't stimulated, I wasn't motivated. So I did just enough to get by. Graduated, went to the greatest university that accepted me at the time, Texas Southern. Why? Open admission. I think I got like a 400 out of 12 on my SATs. Majored in aviation management, went to school. Got a scholarship to go to flight school. Got married at 18. So here's the thing. They gave me the scholarship, but they said you had to leave home for 2 years. And I had 2 boys at the time. So that was my sacrifice. But I love flying. I wanted to play basketball. I thought I was pretty good. But the recruiter saw something different. So I didn't get any offers. But flying was my passion. Now, when I was younger, and I would tell my friends I loved airplanes and flying planes, what do you think they said? Right. That's exactly what they said. So just like when a woman is pregnant with a child, she knows first before anybody else knows. So that was my dream, and I let it develop. And I kept it to myself, because even my friends at that time, when I see them now, they say, I didn't know you liked airplanes. Man, I loved airplanes. But there were no pilots around. There was no Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I had to seek one out and find one, to find a mentor to guide me through, because I didn't do it by myself. So it first starts with prayer. And it wasn't an easy process. And throughout the time, I wanted to quit several times because it was hard. But anything that has a great value comes with a level of difficulty. So it may look easy while I'm doing it, but it's not easy. But I make it look easy because it's my passion. So I could talk to you about airplanes and flying like until. But everyone doesn't have that passion. That's about it. Any questions? Because Brother Derek said I got 10 minutes, so. Yes, sir. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So when I went to Texas Southern, I paid my own way because obviously I didn't get any scholarships, obviously. And my work schedule was I worked graveyards. So I worked from 10 to 6. I came home, got my sons ready for school. So they went to school in 3rd Ward, and then I went to class at 9. So there's no 8 hours sleeping in there. So I went to class from 9 to about 2 or 3 o'clock. So from 3 to 4 o'clock, I would sleep in the business center on the desk because that was the only time I had to sleep. So then I did that again, and I did that Monday through Friday for about 3 years just to get to where I am now. So that's a sacrifice. You got to give up something. You got to give up something. You got to give up hanging out. You got to give up going to parties. You got to give up sleep. You got to give up something to focus on what you do. And it takes that type of focus because it's not easy. It's easier now, but it wasn't easy then. Yes, sir. Oh, that's a good question. So at that time, I surrounded myself with like-minded people. So if you couldn't see the vision, and if you wasn't in the same line of thinking, then if you wasn't encouraging me and we wasn't encouraging each other, because it was a group of us that went through and pulled each other through. Now, everybody didn't make it, because at some point it got really hard, and then for some other reason, some people fell off. But I didn't have a plan B. They said, what if you didn't make it? There was no if. Like I was married with 2 children, still am. I mean, there was no plan B. This was it. That's it. So I surrounded myself with the right kind of people and like-minded people to help me achieve my goal. Now, with the flying part, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I failed the 8th grade. I forgot to tell y'all that. I had to repeat the 8th grade twice. I went to CLC. If y'all are older, y'all remember CLC over there off of Blodgett. And I did 2 grades in 1 year. But I was thinking from that time till now, and like Brother Derek was saying, I was a CD student in high school, and I've been all over the world, everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And I sit and I think, like, wow, what if I would have aborted the process once it got hard? Or what if I said, I just can't do this? This is tough. Or I'm not making any money. Because right after I finished flight school was 9/11. So after 9/11, there was no jobs. So a lot of people quit. They aborted the process because there were no jobs. I taught middle school math. I convinced them to give me a job to teach math. And I was a CD student. Does that make sense? Got to get a job. Baby's got to eat. But I did that, during the intern. Well, so if anything I can say again is you got to figure out is what you're passionate about. For me, it was flying. It might be music. I was passionate about playing basketball, but physically my limitations were only so far. And I saw myself differently than what the recruiter saw myself. I still see myself as that, by the way, in my mind.
If you
Yes,
can name some of the aircraft that you have flown, sir.
Yes, sir. Right now I'm a captain on the 757 and 767. I flew 787, I flew 737, pretty much all the 7s. I got about 2 more left before I get to the full house. I flew a regional jet. I flew a turboprop for free. It's my first flying job. Because again, it was right after 9/11. So, would you work for free? If you saw the end goal, she's looking at me like, for free? Like, yeah, for free. Because the experience was more valuable than the money that they could have paid me. But if I could just keep saying this over and over and over again, it's not easy. When I go talk, I don't convince anybody to try to fly. Because if you don't love it, you'll kill yourself and you'll kill some other people. And I've seen it. But you gotta be passionate about it during those days when you're not gonna make any money, or during those days when things just ain't going right. And it's just difficulty that's placed in front of you. God put these obstacles in front of you to say, okay, you prayed for this. I'm gonna give this to you. But how bad do you want it? What are you willing to sacrifice to get to that point? Because he'll answer your prayer. I prayed for this. That was the first thing I did. I prayed for this. I went to my quiet chamber and I prayed for this. And he said, okay, here you go. So then May 28, 2004, I was in a helicopter crash. He said, do you still want to fly? I'm like, yes, Lord, I still want to fly. After that, he said, hey, I give you this first job. I'm like, this is great. With some of the worst people I've ever met. He said, do you still want to fly? I'm like, yeah, I still want to fly. Then he said, okay, you can fly, but we're not going to pay you. I'm like, I still want to fly. I got to the airline, my first airline job. I got a suit, got to fly a jet, made the equivalent of $9 an hour. Do you still want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I still want to do this. And so as I stuck all the way through, now here I am. I make more than $9 an hour now. I'm gonna say that now because I just did my taxes last week. so the IRS said, you made how much? It's like, we need a little more from you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My question is, working in such a white male-dominated industry, have you ever experienced racism as a black pilot, and more importantly, how did you handle it?
With wisdom. With wisdom. I mean, just last week, I flew with somebody who says, I'm from Missouri with Midwestern values. I'm a Missouri Christian with Midwestern values. We know that dog speak. You know, I want to ask him, where were you January 6th last year? But just with wisdom, because we're all men. And so if we ultimately have a disagreement, there's only one person in charge of my flight deck. That's me. And so, you know, if you, right. What's understood don't need to be said. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about, you talked about after 9/11, everyone started quitting. I think you were graduating at that time, where you were going through internships.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about how difficult it was for you to get the internship, and explain that process for a pilot, and the fact that, did you get paid for your internship? Can you talk about that process? Because it's, you know, it's difficult for some people to understand that sometimes internships is a way to get into the field that you're trying to get into.
Yes, sir. My first internship was my first flying job out of hobby. And usually with internships, with aviation, it's cyclical, just like any other industry. So when they don't need pilots, they raise the barrier of entry. So if you can get in with 100 hours, now if you don't need pilots, you need 1,000 hours of experience. And so right now, the experience level or the requirements are going down because they need pilots. So during that time after 9/11, you had so many pilots out of work. I just wanted to see myself on TV. But you had so many pilots out of work, they don't need pilots. So now, here I am fresh out of school with very little experience. The reason why they were allowed to pay me, or not pay me at all when I flew charter, is because they knew they had 20 other people willing to take my spot. So I didn't mind, like, well, my wife, she